Coming up this week on Success Won't Come Calling.
I think we're in a good place. You know, the pandemic brought a lot of innovation out, people trying to do things differently, pushing technology. The main one is always the AI. You know, boats, everyone always talks about artificial intelligence and what that's going to do to the world. The car I've got now has a bit of AI into it where it knows you're coming up to a toll booth and the window comes down. You know, so it's just working out where you are from a map. But, you know, them little simple additions to certain things, a little bit of innovation. But I think it's the AI space which is really going to sort of start to set apart the tech, really, and how that's used and how that's developed and how far it goes.
Hello friends, welcome to SWCC. Simon Gibson here. Hope you're all well and that you're enjoying the show. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a favour, will you? Just click subscribe and you'll make a middle-aged man very, very happy. My guest this week, we're talking tech, and it's Steve Lucas, who's MD of Zeus Tech Solutions. How are you, sir?
Good, Simon, yeah, very good.
Good. Now, we're going to, first of all, I really appreciate you doing this.
No problem.
Now, we'll go into a bit of detail on how we know each other. We'll go back a little way.
Yeah.
But first of all, I reached out to you when I saw your ugly mug in the across the press this week. And before you tell me what it's all about, I've got to say that whatever technology has got going against it, the fact that your face can be superimposed over a naked surfer, I think is a step in the right direction, really,
that's
isn't it?
Good use of technology right there, isn't it?
I think we've peaked now, though, after that, haven't we, really?
It's all downhill, really, isn't it?
So what was it all about then? It was a firm went bust, didn't it?
Yeah, so a national law firm based in the city, ran into financial difficulties, and obviously made a lot of redundancies, so I think total was 280 people. 20 or so of them were software developers. We're obviously massively expanding in Zeus Tech, so needed some new developers. So as soon as we got wind that this was happening, we put the wheels in motion with finance and HR to try and recruit as many as we could. And obviously the press picked up on it. And we recruited as many developers as we could within I think the day they announced that they were going to go bust.
So these were all people who would have been made redundant? Pretty
much, yeah. You know, so 2 months before Christmas, most of them were just told, I think, the afternoon they got dragged into a room and said, you know, you've no longer got any jobs. 2 of the people we picked up didn't even get an official announcement. They were just logged off the system, still working remotely. So I think they logged off, got a message from someone, and then one of them actually rang me. We tried to recruit a while ago. I was like, is there any jobs going for me? And we offered him a job straight away because we knew what he was like.
So when you're in that situation, when you've obviously got your business, Zeus Tech Solutions, you're growing, you know that you need to get staff in, you hear this rumour about a competitor or, you know, someone in the same space as you who's in difficulty. Have you got people physically picking the phone up to possible new staff there? Yeah,
so it was as soon as we knew, we rang everyone we knew within that business to say, can you send us the developer numbers, contact details, give us a name, we'll find them on LinkedIn or social media. And that's what happened. We were just getting text messages, ring this person, this is the number, you know, you're going to call. And I was just in the room with the HR team, finance. I was like, okay, how many will cash flow allow us to bring in? And how quickly can we get paperwork out to get them signed up? So I think within the hour, we'd had about 4 or 5 offers straight out. And then we were just waiting to chase a few more people down. Some people had to stay behind and work with the administrators in the business who were hopefully going to join us next month. But it was just a quick whirlwind of, you know, let's get these developers signed up as quick as possible because of the work we've got coming through the door.
It's interesting because there's no losers there, is there? Because it's really unfortunate for the directors and the shareholders of this business, and you know, I wish them well. These things happen. If you don't fail from time to time, you're not an innovator. You've got to be prepared to do that. So my best wishes go to them. But with that having happened, getting people who would have otherwise just found themselves on the job market a month before Christmas into your business through that like really direct approach, there's no losers there, is there? Because you're after staff, they're after jobs. Cut out the middleman, cut out the paperwork, go out and get them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the typical thing is you've got to go and find recruitment agencies, pay their fees, you know, all that sort of stuff. So for us, it was, we know they're good developers, they've got good reputations, you know, we've heard good things about them from people who've worked in that business. let's get them in, let's get them secured. And I think most we brought in, because we pay much better wages than what law firms will pay developers. Most of them come in on a bit of a pay rise as well. A lot more benefits, and so far all good reviews from clients that have been working with, and the managers have been impressed with how they're working. So definitely win-win for Zeus. Real positive, and will help us grow even further. And
win-win for the people who are in work. So fair play to you for that. Oh, by the way, cheers, man. We're having a couple of beers tonight. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We met, didn't we? We worked together, getting on for 10 years ago when I was still a lawyer.
Yep.
And you were like the techie in the back room who was kept under lock and key, and no one quite knew what happened in the room.
Yeah.
But since then, you've done amazing, mate. So you've now got Zeus Tech Solutions, your own business. And is it 5 years old?
We're 5 years old next Tuesday, Wednesday. So yeah, literally 5 years old on Wednesday. And I think we've evolved so much in them 5 years. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but it's always been improve. We never really took a step back.
So tell everyone what Zeus does then, first of all.
So Zeus is a software company, and we've got sort of two sides to it really. We do case management consultancy for law firms, improving their efficiencies, making the systems work a bit quicker, a bit slicker. And then the other side is pure bespoke software. So anything from integrating an Alexa device into something to building a brand new web application for a business, right down to mobile phone apps, anything like that really. So we've got quite a multilingual software team within the business. They can turn a hand to most things, to be fair. So full service software consultancy.
And you mentioned law firms a couple of times there. How come you've decided to? Because I mean, software these days, and the development of that software and the development of apps, that's in practically every business and every part of life. How come you've decided at the moment that you're going to specialise and niche Zeus in terms of helping law firms specifically?
It's probably just the background. So I think I'm 20 years in now in law tech. So for me, it's what I know. And I know I've got a lot of connections within the industry. They're quite. I think law's probably seen as quite sort of draconian, paper-based, and not very efficient. But my experience is, law firms and lawyers in particular are always trying to push technology and do something different with it. So law's always been quite interesting from a tech point of view. We've got other clients in the insurance space and the finance space, but the lawyers seem to try and push it a bit more, I think, than most businesses. So predominantly our client base, it's about 60-40 now, but it is law firms.
And I think the perception, isn't it, of the legal profession is that it's a license to print money, and it's really prehistoric in terms of the way they work. But my understanding is that it's been through quite a sea change over the last 10 years or so, and that is that right? The lawyers having to work a bit harder now?
Definitely have to work a bit harder for the money. I think sort of old days of lawyers making an absolute fortune are probably gone. The margins are smaller. Most things are fixed fees. There's been massive reforms, particularly in the PI space, where fees have been cut right down to nothing practically. So embracing the tech and trying to improve the efficiencies will improve your margin. So that's really what we try and do, is look at the problem and say, well, we can do that more efficient if you use this technology or use this particular set of software. So for me, there's still money to be made within law, but you've got to really look at your process and how much you're driving them efficiencies.
And I mean, the thing which interests me, of course, is that back in my day when I was a lawyer, you always had, well, this was your team at the time in my law firm, you always had like an in-house team. Did they not do that anymore? Like an in-house tech team? Doesn't happen anymore?
They still have them. What we find, because we still work with a load of businesses who've got internal IT, whether that's IT leadership or IT development level. And what we find is that the in-house developers are normally focused dealing with a lot of different problems. They can't really focus on one particular area of the business to make it as efficient as possible. So we really come in and work either with the leaders and say, well, if your internal team's at capacity now, if you bring us in and we focus on this part of the business, you'll make more money. So they still have them internally. A lot of the smaller businesses who have internal developers, my experience again is they don't really know what they're doing with them, you know, how to get best use out of them, are they following best practice to develop things. So again, we come in either as an advisory role or we just come in and take the work on. So it just depends on the business, but you know, software developers are expensive. The average business needs a software developer, a manager, you know, an IT director, whereas the way we do it at Zeus is, although you might just get a developer, you've got that level of experience and management above them where we can add the value and go, well, you're not just getting a developer. You know, the Zeus way is that you get me, you get my managers, you know, you can bring us in at any point to say, I've got this problem, what do I need to do? And 9 times out of 10 we solve it.
So I'm getting where your competitive advantage is there, because I'm speaking from personal experience. What you've described is the problem, insofar as if you're going to look after your own tech, whatever business you're in, you can't just get one person to be the sort of infrastructure guy who fixes the printers or fixes the internet when it goes down, but also can do some development, who also can work strategically with you on where you're taking the business. What you need is, you need like a team of people. But of course, not every business can afford a big team, or they might not need a team permanently. It might be like project work. So they just wheel you in, do they?
Pretty much, yeah. So, you know, sometimes the law firm leader, for example, they don't really want to understand the tech. They don't want to understand the language you're going to use, you know. So sometimes law firm leaders will have a problem making the plain English connection to what they need to do from a tech point of view, because typical developers that they'll employ will be used to talking code or, you know, the language. And that sometimes just annoys most business leaders, because they just want to know, well, okay, well, what does that actually mean to me? So we spend a lot of time just explaining things to the clients in as much as plain English as possible and try and guide them so they're not feeling, you know, sometimes belittled by people trying to out-tech someone. Whereas, you know, we've been around long enough to know that's not how you do it. You know, you've got to explain things simple.
Well, because I know you and because you are a very plain speaking guy.
Is that that's an insult?
Definitely not. But I mean, for a techie, you're not someone who blinds with science. And is that something you've tried to bring to your clients in terms of, you know, if something is simple, explain it simply. Don't prove how clever you are. Yeah. On the contrary, try and say, look, we can sort this out.
Yeah, it's exactly that. You know, we call it our consultancy handbook within Zeus, and it tells you how you should be communicating with the clients. And it's very much that. It's keep it simple. You know, don't try and blind them with science. Don't baffle them with any big buzzwords. Sometimes you get a technical client who maybe understands that world. So, you know, it's about finding that common translation point where you can say, well, this is actually what you need. You know, you don't need to talk about web service and RESTful APIs and all that madness. You just want to make that system talk to that system. Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, make the business better.
Exactly.
Ultimately, that's what people's goal is, isn't it? It's not about the detail. You want the end game, don't you? Want the benefit.
That's it. And you know, 9 times out of 10, again, they don't care about the technical bits. They've just got a problem. Come and solve it, and you know, solve it, go away, come back, solve it another day, type of thing. So it's not the way to do it. And you know, throughout my career, I've tried not to just out-tech the management team or, you know, the board of directors. It's got to be plain and explainable, really.
I would apply that to virtually any area of business, because I always find that there's a bit of an intelligence competition going on in a lot of professional or technical businesses. I suspect people who are listening and watching will know what I mean, insofar as there will be a sort of innate paranoia running throughout a lot of businesses that if you explain things in a way which is complex, your value increases.
Yeah.
But quite a lot, I just think you end up doing everyone's head in. You know, clients and team members, and if you're able to communicate in a way which actually explains how the problem can be solved, there's actually more value in that than the techie bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do a lot of like tech roundtables with other tech leaders and other industry leaders in that space, and this become apparent on one I was doing last week, where one of the biggest law firms in the country. Their chief technical officer was there, and you just couldn't get a word in Edgeway. At one point, he had all the answers, and his answers were always very technical, and you could just sort of read the room where I think most people were trying to nod off a little bit and have a nap. And it comes to the point where I thought I'm going to have to start interrupting this guy and being a little bit rude just so I could get my points across, because some of the points he was putting across were just, they were pointless. They weren't adding anything to the conversation. It was about innovation. We were talking about technologies that were like 15 years old. And at some point you've got to say, come on, just turn in a little bit and just playing the language up a little bit.
I think people who achieve success quickest are always those who are very comfortable with their own knowledge and expertise. And once you are comfortable in that, you can actually start thinking about what the person you're interacting with wants, rather than the sort of halo polishing that comes with just talking about how clever you are.
How good you are, yeah. And again, the beauty of Zeus is, if there's something I don't know, there's enough good guys within the team who can explain it the same way, where you can just drop someone into a call or put something in. So it's also not about you trying to be the number one tech guy. It's about the team and about who else can add value to that conversation. Whereas this approach in this roundtable I was at, you could just imagine how their team meetings go. It's just him talking at them about something that existed 15, 20 years ago that the developers are thinking, why are we doing it this way? So it's that's the most important part of the job, is trying to explain the tech to people in a way they'll understand, not trying to patronise or show off, because ultimately they just want to solve a problem.
That's it. Let's go back to the start and when you first set out on the journey with Zeus. Then you started it from scratch, as I understand. So you had like no clients on day one.
Pretty much no. I think we just started the tech business. Then we got one client quite quick, and it started as a snowball. But yeah, your first client is it's the start of it, isn't it? So
you've got to get some money through the door.
Exactly. And then, your first client becomes 2, 3, 4. But then, we called this part of Zeus the evolution of Zeus, because we're then learning how to deal with clients' problems, clients' expectations. So again, you're learning all the time where, again, how you speak to people or what services you do. It's about keep building that trust. But the first client way back in the day was quite an easy one to deal with. I wish they were all like that, to be fair. They've not all been like that. But it was part of the Zeus journey of, one client becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 4. COVID hit, 10 becomes 7. But it's all about just keeping moving forward with the plan and keep trying to grow.
And back in those days, just try and cast your mind back. What do you see as, let's say, in the first 12? Because statistically, a large proportion of businesses go under in the first 12 to 18 months, and obviously you didn't, and you're in a fantastic position now. What were the challenges you faced in that first 12 to 18 months?
I think it was the same most businesses face. So it's credit control, it's making sure people are paying your bills on time, making sure you're charging enough for things. Recruitment is always a massive issue in a business like ours. So I don't think it's anything really too different than what other businesses do. But, my sort of early days, I trained as an accountant. So I've always been quite concerned with the money, sometimes probably a bit too much and being a bit of a tight ass. But, sometimes you've got to just keep an eye on what you're spending.
You've got to pay for that beer, by the way.
And also,
right?
yeah. Well, you haven't had my fee for this this appearance yet. Yeah. But it's that, so you're already thinking about the concert charges, but it's right, you've got to worry about the money. But as I've got a bit older and a bit more on with the business, the advice you get from other people is you sometimes just got to invest to expand, really. So when we did take on all them developers the other month, you're thinking, okay, well now you've got to put them to work and get the money back through the door to pay for them.
You've got to go and find the work to bring it in for them to do, and for you to bring the money through the door. Yeah,
so that's just the next step is we've quadrupled in size. We've got to go and earn the money.
And did you, just off camera, you mentioned you're doing some work internationally now as well? Did you say Australia?
So we've got a couple of clients in Australia. We've got a large insurance company. They've been a client for a good couple of years now. We've got a couple of law firms, a medical agency. We've had some interest this week or last week from the Middle East. around building some software.
So how do they find you?
I don't know, because they just sort of seems to turn up, to be fair. So, you know, we stopped doing Google adverts, I think, probably earlier this year. And we just left it to what we're doing on social media, LinkedIn. You know, we've been in a couple of articles. You know, people refer us a lot. A lot of our work comes from word of mouth. So a lot of the times the conversation will be, oh, speak to Steve from Zeus, and it'll go from there, really.
The go-to guy.
Yeah, it's trading on your reputation, isn't it? So, you know, if we do a good job, in my mind, we'll get another good job from someone else. Yeah.
I know we live in a world which is very advanced, and where, you know, people invest stupid amounts of money in digital marketing and that sort of thing. But I still think, you know, I as a consumer and as someone who's in business myself, I would go personal recommendation in the same way I did 20 years ago. There's something there which hasn't changed, and I'm not sure it will change. I think there will always be a market and people saying, you know, if you need someone, go and speak to this fella.
I think so. And it's a B2B, it's people to people. It's not, you know, you're not buying something off a web page, you know, new pair of trainees or something. It's you're buying a professional person to come and do a professional job. So, you know, you have to put yourself out there and put your team out there like that. Yeah.
And when you started off, I mean, 5 years is not a very long time to be traded in.
It feels like yesterday, but I think I'm a little bit heavier, a little bit grayer. Yeah, a little bit tireder, but yeah.
But did you think?
What were you coughing for?
Did you think back then that you would have achieved what you had in that 5 year period?
I mean, back then we were probably just living, we had a plan, but we were living month to month to see how we got on. Now, as the business plans progressed and unfolded, you have to start to think a bit bigger and a bit more, you know, in the future. But I think back then it was just about, okay, well, this is the business we've got, and this is the customers we're trying to get, and this is the software. So this is what we need to do. But, you know, now you're thinking, we've got a good track record. How far can we actually take this business?
Well, I'm going to ask you about, it'd be great to spend some time on that in a little while, just to think about what the future holds. But I was interested, obviously we've spoke a lot here about the importance of people in a business journey. And obviously we've touched upon the issue that the recruitment market is pretty fluid at the moment. Yeah. There's, on the one hand, you read a lot about businesses failing, but then on the other hand, every shop and office and you know, coffee shop and restaurant you walk past has got a vacancy sign in the window. So there's something funny happening out there. I had Angela Eagle MP on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I was offering Angela my view that we're entering the age of the worker, of the employee, because I think through a combination of globalization, COVID, Brexit, digitalization, the market is just much wider than it's ever been, and people have got a lot more options. And when you read about the likes of Lidl paying £10, £10.50 as the starting point, which is obviously great news, it looks as if there will be an environment where people are paid more, where they're looked after more, where they've got better prospects, better conditions, which is fantastic news. I suppose, first of all, do you think that's right?
I think it's right, and I think you know, we did a big exercise a couple of months ago where we looked at how much we pay the team, what benefits we provide them, and it was all in line with, you know, are we being as attracted to the market as possible. So I think it has shifted more towards, you know, the employee. But, you know, if you put yourself in the employee's shoes, wouldn't you want more pay? Wouldn't you want better benefits? And wouldn't you want, you know, more flexible working day? So I think COVID's changed. You know, one good thing to come out of COVID, I think, is just that change of you can work flexible, you can work anywhere in the country or the world or wherever. A lot of our team now are remote. And when I say remote, you know, they're not remote round the corner. They're down south, they're up north. We've got one guy joined us last week. He's in Newcastle. You know, he spent this week in Liverpool. We put him up in a hotel. You know, before the pandemic, would you be bringing people from Newcastle and paying hotels? Probably not. But for me, I think it has gone definitely in an employee market. But I think it's a good thing. But businesses are going to have to pay more.
Well, the money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. And it's only going to come from two areas, isn't it? It's either going to come from the business. So I get how, there could be an argument that if you've got a business with a huge profit margin, it should just eat into its profit margin, or it's coming from the customer.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt that we're in a situation where everyone's got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
I.e., people might well expect, rightly so, to earn a bit more.
Yeah.
They're going to be paying a bit more as well.
Yeah.
And I think as long as everyone's on that same page, including the government, then we've got an opportunity to move forward. I think in not just in the UK, but I think in a number of places in the world, maybe the majority of the world, in a way which is making everyone more prosperous.
Yeah. Well, I think if everyone's earning more money and you can pay more money and you can earn more money and you can build more money, it's just a good thing for the country anyway. So, as long as it works, it's fine. Recruitment, particularly in the software developer space, is tougher. Skills shortages, skill gaps.
How come then?
It just seems to be we haven't kept up, I think, with that level of training within the country, whereas other countries around the world, the software development's been on the syllabus for a longer time. They've got better universities. Yeah. So there's a lot of developers in other countries. It's more of a priority. Getting visas, if you go and look around the world, so Australia, for example, they'll take software developers in on a work permit before lawyers. So there's different skills shortages around the world, but software development in the UK, it's not. I don't think it's kept up with demand. So now the government's addressing that. There's more digital apprenticeships and all that type of stuff, but it's something we've got to assist with. So, part of our business plan is to create a training academy from January where we can bring developers in, teach them the Zeus way, teach them what they need to know, which will benefit us, but also the industry.
So you're literally talking about bringing people who haven't necessarily got like a tech background or a tech academic background.
Yeah. So, for example, my background was finance. I transferred over to tech in my early 20s and, people can do it. One of the guys we were speaking about when we come in, who's now a digital marketer, he started his life as a welder, way back when, and he trained, went to college, and I gave him his first job in a law firm many years ago as a software developer, and he was brilliant. One of the best developers we've ever had. But people can transfer skills easy, but the training's got to be there.
It has. It always interests me, this, in terms of when someone hits a bit of a rut or a brick wall in the career or the life, because doing something like that, cross-skilling into an area which is not their background, which is not what they've done historically, can seem like a huge step. And particularly if there's a financial implication, if people have got the mortgages to pay and they have to spend 6 months with no money or limited money. But 6 months in a life is not that long.
No.
And if a solution, I think, can be found to that, if you can stop thinking about, oh my God, 6 months with no money, that is just unachievable, to what's the solution to that, then you can arrive at the back end of that 6 months in a much better place.
Yeah. And if you're good at it, there's a good career path, there's good earnings. So, it's sometimes you've got to take that train off the tracks, haven't you, and just put it back together and do something different. But that's where we need to go. As a country, we need to grow more developers, more software developers. It's the future of the world, isn't it, really?
Well, I wanted to talk about that because, tech generally is, the scale at which and the speed at which tech has developed, not just in business, but in the world. We've never seen anything like it.
No.
If you think about it, since the car came out, what was that, the 40s or something, was it?
A little bit earlier,
yeah,
the Model C.
30s, yeah. It's probably about twice as quick now as it was then, a standard car. But
what car are you driving?
Is it? Are they faster than that, are they?
I imagine so, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure I read this somewhere, I don't come with any of my own material to this podcast,
Something we need to look up, yeah.
But tech, when you think that 20 years ago, if I told you that I was getting a taxi to my house within minutes without getting up off the couch and without even making a phone call. You've just said, well, how are you going to do that? You've got people finding friends who they've not seen for years online, and better communication, and businesses basing their whole trading from Instagram. If you look at the speed at which tech has developed, we've never seen anything like it.
No.
What do you see as, in terms of where the world is? I mean, tech is quite a wide category. I mean, I'm thinking of things not just about things like processes and software, but in terms of, for example, the way we communicate, social media.
Yeah.
Where do you think the world is now, and do you think we're in a good place or not a good place?
I think we're in a good place. The pandemic brought a lot of innovation out. People trying to do things differently, pushing technology. The main one is always the AI. Boats. Everyone always talks about artificial intelligence and what that's going to do to the world. The car I've got now has a bit of AI into it, where it knows you're coming up to a toll booth and the window comes down. So it's just working out where you are from a map. But them little simple additions to certain things, a little bit of innovation. But I think it's the AI space which is really going to sort of start to set apart the tech, really, and how that's used and how that's developed, and how far it goes. So you think about the Terminator type of thing, where it takes over the world and destroys civilization. Then there was an article, I think literally last week or the week before, and they had this AI thing that would discuss morals and ethics, and you could ask it a question and it'd tell you, whether it was morally correct. But it also learns from its responses with a bit of machine learning. So then it evolves, and it should get better at answering the questions. But it just evolved into, I think the only answer that it could come up with in the end was genocide. So it literally relived the Terminator film, where all roads just led to eliminate.
All roads lead to Arnie.
Exactly. So with Arnie's, he was an innovator ahead of his time back then. But yeah, I think it's got a long way to go before I think we let AI, rule certain things. But it's used in a lot of businesses. We partner with a lot of artificial intelligence businesses to integrate into the case management systems to do various different things. So
that's basically getting computers to do things in a way which is as close to full automation as possible with limited human interaction, and perhaps also to learn from the processes which are originally set in place.
Yeah, exactly that. So one of the examples we've been involved in recently is it'll read a medical report for an injury and then do something with it. So it'll value the case, for example, or it'll take certain part of data and do something with the system.
Send it to someone else.
Yeah.
Move data about that sort of thing.
Exactly. And every now and then it'll get a report in which doesn't fit the mould. So it'll spit that out to a human, and then the human will tell it, well, what that actually means is this.
And then gradually it learns.
And then it
more.
learns, and it goes, okay, I think this now means that. And the human will go, yes, you're right.
Oh, Stace, get me another beer, please. Get one yourself, love, as well. Come on.
I'm all right,
You better add. Yeah, seriously, we're talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. Yeah, let's because I wanted to go back to what Zeus does with automation. Let's just bring this. I've got very interested in social media since we've been doing the podcast. I knew nothing about it before we did this. But how much do you know about these algorithms that sit behind?
I don't think anyone knows too much about them. They keep them closely guarded, don't they? But you can. There's people who work these things out and publish them and post them. But it's something like Facebook, for example. Imagine what they're doing with the data behind the scenes and what they know about individuals. So the algorithms, they're not just there to present the information in a proper fashion. The money and the business behind the data is profiling the consumer, profiling habits. Really trying to say, what does Simon Gibson do? Online, and what can we sell him, or what can we target him with? But also that information is used in other decision things. So I had a story from an insurance underwriter where if you stay in a certain hotel, I think it was Premier Inn, or when you used to stay in Premier Inn, they never had a phone in the room. So if you stayed in a Premier Inn and you used your credit card to book a Premier Inn room, then if you try to get wedding insurance or something later on, you'd be much of a higher risk because your wife can't ring through to the room. So typically people have affairs going them type of hotels. Now I go to Premier Inn because it's cheap, because I'm a tight ass.
Right, we'll clip that bit out for Mrs. Lucas. We want to assure you that's why Steve goes to Premier Inn.
Yeah, because I'm a tight ass. But it's that type of data which, you know, is being sucked out of Facebook and then being used to make decisions on insurance, life insurance, you know, all that type of stuff.
The thing which worries me is, I think when you ask people what are you worried about on social media, people say, oh, they're after my data. And I think it's worse than that, because when we all go onto social media platforms, we're not their customer, we're their product.
Yeah.
The customers are the advertisers.
Yeah.
And the only reason they're letting us onto their platforms for free is because it gives them an opportunity to keep us engaged and keep us exposed to the advertisers. And that's what they're selling. They're not selling our data. I mean, they might do.
Well, they definitely are. They definitely are. You know, it's not just the advertising space. It's that information about you, which is valuable, not just to the advertisers, but to the bigger businesses.
What I mean by that is, when I say data, I'm talking about, it's not as simple as saying, right, you can buy Simon Gibson's name, address, national insurance number, date of birth. They're actually selling your behaviours.
Yeah, it's your habits.
And they use the algorithms to either reinforce those behaviours or to change them. And that is pretty terrifying, particularly when you throw in this issue of machine learning.
Yeah.
Because I think at the moment when you look at society and the issues of sort of controversy that we have, if it's politics, if it's identity, if it's anything. And the one thing I always think is noteworthy is when people say, this folk on the other side of the argument, the ones who go left rather than right, for example, how on earth can they think that's true? But of course, the answer to that might be that the social media platforms are reinforcing the fact that it's true, and that they form the impression, and it could be right, it could be wrong, that everyone agrees with them.
Yeah, I think it's what they can do. So, you know, the old days of politics and wherever, the newspapers controlled the message, didn't they?
Yeah.
They controlled. So now, you know, we don't have that. It's social media. So, you know, with like the Russians hacking Facebook or trying to drive votes and all this sort of stuff, you know, that's what this data is used for. So the data that's available within that system is being used to try and target people who are maybe a little bit more easier to put a message to say, well, vote for this president, not that president, or vote for Labour, or vote for whatever. So it's all that big data that's used to target things, to change people's behaviours. But in reality, you know, the amount of data and people that are on these platforms, they could change the world.
Well, they could. And when people talk about hacking now, I don't think that's as difficult as you might imagine it was, because I don't know if it's true or not that the Russians were directly involved in any election, but it wouldn't be that hard for any like rogue nation to find its way into a group, a social media group, where a certain issue was being discussed, and to bring a degree of toxicity to the argument, to bring fake news to the argument, to bring distorted facts, and to influence, you know, an increasing number of people to sort of say, well, hang on, it's online, it must be true. And, you know, we're reading this all the time, it's got to be.
Yeah, I think that's it. And, you know, the technology space, governments will use technology to block certain messages as well. So, you know, the Chinese government will block social media from around the world. They've got their own government-owned social media platforms, because of the message that they want to put to the citizens is their message, not the world.
COVID, aren't they? If you put anything to do with the vaccination or anything, or unvaccinated or anything like that now, you've got to blank it out, otherwise they remove your post.
Yeah.
And it's worse than that, because, I mean, there's a guy called Brett Weinstein in the US, podcaster and academic, and he's been demonetized by YouTube. I hope they don't demonetize me for telling everyone this. Mind you, you can't demonetize me. It's impossible. But he was just having a debate.
So
about,
you're waiting for that YouTube money to get a new car out now. It's a bit quicker.
Yeah, this next one's going to be double the speed of the first one.
Need a faster car.
But all he was doing on his podcast was just having a rational debate about the efficacy of the vaccine. He wasn't saying, don't take it. He wasn't saying, do take it. He clearly might have had a personal view on that, but it was just rational discourse on it, and he's been demonetised.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what a social media platform's position on that would be, but I bet it was. I bet they'd say, oh, well, this is just the algorithms.
Yeah.
It's just them picking up. You haven't got a human being doing that, and, it's unfortunate and all the rest of it. But if that is what can happen as a consequence of the way the technology is being run, then it's a threat to democracy. It's a threat to humanity, insofar as if we can't have discussions about things we disagree with.
Yeah.
Where are we?
Yeah, well, that's not the point of it, is it? You're meant to be able to say what you like within reason. But yeah, it's only going to get, I'm going to say worse. It's only going to keep on evolving as the tech gets better, and as as more information is collected about people, really. Yeah, but that's a million miles away from what we do as a business. But it is the way technology's going, and you can see a situation in years to come where you'll know a lot more about your clients coming through the law firm's doors because of what's available out there, I think.
So let's take this discussion back to Zeus then, and back to the sort of business world and how tech is utilised in the business world. What can you see in the next sort of 5 or 10 years in terms of the technology at Zeus's disposal, which you could use to help clients develop their business and become more efficient? It's
back to this sort of AI learning point where you can try and not replace the lawyers, but replace the decision making of how a case needs to be run based on
or any process. I would have thought.
Yeah, any process. What should happen next in this process? Does a human need to make that decision, or does the system know enough about it to do it itself? So that's really where the industry will go. How law firms attract clients now, that's changed over the years, back to the algorithms and Facebook and social media, etc. You now know a lot more about that client and how you target them for your services in any industry. So it's joining up the social front of house with your business and trying to pull them in through them algorithms as well, and then how you run that process. So it is a big sort of sea change of, well, you don't need to do things as manually as what you've been doing. The pandemic done away with physical signing. You can witness the documents on video chat now. The old days you'd have to try and find someone, or get it witnessed a bit later on. But it's just changing constantly.
And just in terms of thinking of this issue of automation, one of the things I've really seen change in the last 5 years or so in the business world is the ability to monitor your own business performance through better data that you can obtain quicker. So you can measure things like productivity, profitability, efficiency through some real evidence-backed data. Is that something Zeus get involved in?
Yeah, so we right before the pandemic, we wrote a platform. We called it Call MI, and what that platform allowed you to do was just to ring a bot, if you like, an AI chat bot, and you could ask it questions in plain English. So you could say, how's my business doing? How many new cases have I had today? What does the billing look like? And it would go away and pull the data from databases and then present it back to you in voice, text, whatever. But it's that type of technology now where you can have a conversation with these voice-first technology devices like Alexa or the Google one, and you can interact with it just as you'd interact with like your PA. So tell me how's the business doing today. It will understand that and then present all the information back to you. So again, the world, something we're going to actively be promoting over the next sort of 12 months is, well, you don't need a big, huge MI team to churn out spreadsheets to tell you whether you're making money or not. It's just a simple question to a voice-first tech device that says, well, how are we doing today? And it should be able to come back and say, you're doing good or you're doing crap, or you need to take me down the cash converters and cash me in because you've not done too well, really. But it's that type of tech where we need to push more onto that, where your business decisions can be, your business information can be returned quicker, faster. Smartwatch. There's no reason why
accurately.
Yeah, no reason why you can't just ask your watch, well, what's going on today with the business and have we made any money? You
And
know,
it seems to me that if what we were talking about before is accurate, that we're entering the age of the employee, and that there could genuinely be a labour shortage across a number of sectors, particularly if all of a sudden you've got businesses in the retail sector or the hospitality sector or the leisure sector who are actually offering packages, benefits, rewards to team members who would ordinarily come and work in an insurance company or a bank or a law firm or whatever it is. It seems to me that tech is not just, it doesn't just have the potential to improve a business. It might be crucial just to sustain it if the labour power just isn't available.
Yeah, and in any business, you know, you've always got competitors. If you're not keeping up with your competitors, you know, through innovation, through acquiring better tech, you know, better developers, better software, then you're not going to compete as well. So, you know, it's important you work with businesses and people who understand what's going on in the industry and what are the drivers of change. So, you know, if you're just sitting there thinking, well, we've got this case management system and so have they, we're fine, you know, we're competing. Well, they might be doing something completely different to what you are, and they'll be more efficient, more leaner.
I just want to try and visualise this transaction that happens in terms of when you get a new client, because you've talked about sort of case management, you've talked about software products, what Zeus does. If you get a client, and the majority of clients are law firms, if a new law firm knocks on your door and says, look, there's a lot of change in the sector, or my business isn't performing the way I wanted to, what would your starting position be in terms of sort of analysing the problem and seeing if you could help?
It's usually conversation. Sit down, we'll talk us through what you're trying to do, talk through what your problems are. And, you know, again, most of the time we've either been through this with another customer or we've been talking about it with someone that hasn't quite gone ahead. So, you know, because we talk to that many law firms and within the space, you sort of know what's coming. So the classic last year was Japanese knotweed claims. So, you know, suing the railways for this plant that destroys your house.
That's what lots of law firms were doing.
They move. So when the reforms hit, and although a lot of firms plan for the reforms hitting in the UK, where, you know, the cost of whiplashes and the claims went massively reduced, they started trying to jump on any sort of bandwagon they could do. But the funny one was always the Japanese knotweed, because I was saying, well, surely you get a load of these seeds and you go around and just put them everywhere, and you've created a whole new...
Hang on, talk me through this. This is a plant.
It's plants that destroys your house.
Right.
Yeah.
And who are people suing for that?
Well, the railway, because the plant's on their land, and then it travels around the area. Then they...
Why didn't you just cut it back, though?
I think it's quite hard. You've got to, like, get flamethrowers and nuclear missiles and all sorts of stuff to get rid of it yet. So
what's it called, plant?
Japanese knotweed. Yeah.
Do you know what? This is a good excuse for me not to do any more gardening. I can't do it with this Japanese knotweed.
Kill
My flamethrower's broke.
We've covered some topics this week.
Oh, there it is, there. Look.
Yeah, look how evil it looks.
It looks so innocent.
I know, but look, see there through the pavements, that one there.
I'm more worried about that fella hiding behind the bushes.
Oh my God.
But apparently, yeah, it can just...
Yeah, look at that.
It can take over countries and all sorts of stuff. So I think Kim Jong-un started growing them in the fields of
With
North
Japanese
Korea.
knotweed? Wow.
Yeah.
I tell you what, with the risks of tech and Japanese knotweed, we've just not got a very nice world to look forward to, have we?
It's when Arnie and the AI gets hold of Japanese knotweed and they take over the world. That's when it's going to go. But yeah, a lot of law firms sort of went down that path, housing disrepair, etc., all different things. But yeah, it's just a civil claim, you know. So the process is quite straightforward.
So you're working with them on making the process as slick as possible, there, are you?
Yeah, and I think it's become a bit more elusive, but yeah, it's just a civil claim. So, you know, it's not anything different to what you'll understand from being a lawyer, but a civil claim.
What about this business of I've been seeing a lot about? Is it like mortgage mis-selling? People say they've had the
PCPs and the car claims and...
Oh, yeah. Is that something you've helped people with?
That seems to be at the minute the fastest growing one. So, you know...
and what do you do for a law firm who says, we want to look into whether our clients have had mortgages mis-sold to them or car loans?
Depending which so on this example of PCP, we partner with RoboCloud Clear Data. And what their software does is it reads these PCP agreements.
What are they, like a car finance agreement?
Reads the car finance agreements and picks apart all the bits that are important to calculating what your loss is, and then presents that back to the lawyer to do what needs to be done. But again, you know, the AI is reading the documents and saying, well, these bits of the forms are important.
So it's literally, the system you've got will literally read the document, pull out what the lawyer needs, and then the lawyer does the legal bit.
Yeah, pretty much. So, you know, a lot of the clients we work with are looking at improving that process because it could be quite you know, bulk industry. Most people have had a couple of cars. I don't think you got your car on PCP. I think you were selling like corn or something when you got yours.
It only cost me 3 and 6 anyway, so it should be all right.
So it's that's a big one at the minute, but that's perfect for tech. You know, it's high volume. It's quite a good process. If you can do it as efficient as possible, you'll make more money. So, you know, that's a good use of law tech.
And just thinking about the future, how far do you think that could go I suppose you say in business, but let's think about what you usually think of as like professional services, where you've got office blocks full of people, you know, banks, insurers, law firms, that sort of thing, public sector maybe. How far do you think tech over the years ahead will be able to push the boundaries to bring in more AI and more automation and take, you know, to change what's required from human beings?
I think it's on an upward trend. You know, it's just about it's not going to come in and replace everyone or everything, but it's more about, you know, creating them efficiencies and increasing capacity within the businesses. That's only going to go really one way. You know, so for me, the more they embrace the tech and the more they use it and they use that to grow the business. You know, a lot of the businesses we work with who are quite tech savvy and push tech and invest in it, you know, their workforce doesn't go any smaller. It just grows and grows and grows.
Oh, right, I see.
Because there's still work to be done. But maybe the work's being done by more specialists or more, you know, more skilled people.
So they scale the business.
Transition. Yeah.
Scale a business, but not the workforce, and they get the tech doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah. And the business will still scale from an employee point of view because, you know, there's more jobs to do. The AI is not perfect. Sometimes it'll fall out and have to go to a human. So them humans have got to do something and read the document and press the button instead of the machine. So there's always a human element in these things, but that will get better.
Yeah. And what about Zeus then? You said what's the sort of the years ahead for the tech world. What's next for Zeus?
I think it's just continue the growth pattern we're on. You know, more customers, different industries. We've done a bit of insurance and other sectors. So it's about just continuing the Zeus Tech journey and trying to evolve even further. Trying to grow, trying to build our own developers through the academy. And just seeing how big we can take it, really, not put the brakes on.
And I know that you were telling me off camera that you've still got the vast majority of your team with you who started on those first days that you've described. How much do you value your team?
It's such a good thing to have, you know, the people who've been with you back then. They've come up the ranks. You know, one of our tech director, he's a star. He started as a graduate. He's now practically running all the development team. But he's learned the last 2 years the commercial side of it. You can deal with the customers. So having them people come with you is good because, you know, they're trusted, you know, how hard working they are. But recently we've had people who we've worked with in the past come and join us. So we had a guy I worked with, you know, years and years ago. And we obviously doing a lot on social media. He's like, I think I want to come and work for Zeus. Is there any jobs for me? And again, because you know this person and how good they are, it was like, definitely, like, when can you start? So it's good getting people coming back. I've worked with as well, because it just shows, well, they liked the environment we've created, they liked the you know, the culture. But good people will always be welcome at Zeus, I think.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we've talked a lot about the way tech's going to develop, the way you can push the boundaries of AI. But you've used the trust word there.
Yeah.
Are we ever going to automate trust? Are we ever going to automate that belief that you have in someone that they will, as a minimum, work as per their values, that they'll be honest, that they'll show integrity? And I think that's what the human race has got to offer, and I'm not sure I see that being automated.
Yeah, it's probably I mean, so far, you know, we talked about the moral and ethics AI we talked about before. It ended up in genocide. So I don't think we're going to trust it to run everything. My side of it, having people you trust, who you're going to trust to put into someone else's business, you know, they've got to be good. They've got to know what they're doing. They've got to be open and honest if something goes wrong. So trust is a massive part of our business as well. You know, trusting a developer, you know, particularly because we just took a load of new ones on, you might not know that well going into an existing client who's you've been working with for 2 years. You know, there's you've got to put the right people in the right place, because then 2 years could be washed aside if you put someone in who, you know, muddies it. So trusting the people to do the job is massive.
And it's key with leadership as well, isn't it? Because there's no way when you get a business to a certain size that you can keep growing if you're having to check everyone's coming into the office on time and making sure that you know, every piece of work. So you've got to be able to delegate and to have trust in that delegation. Yeah,
that's it. And that's a big part of our 22 business plan, is thinking, well, you know, I do a fair bit at the minute. I need to pull myself away from it to do other things, and you've got to trust your management team to do what they need to do. So, you know, my journey is always evolving as well as the business, is to think, well, I need to pull away from this and just focus on something else, because if I'm worried about, you know, who's coming in late or who's having a holiday type of thing, it's just not going to work to grow the business where we need it to be.
No, you've got to get off the tools. The point comes when you've got to work on the business, not in the business, as they say. But listen, it's just been so fascinating catching up with you, Steve, and congratulations on what you've been able to do with your own business with Zeus Tech Solutions. I mean, it's always fantastic to see when someone takes the technical skills that they've got, but then applies people skills, applies leadership skills, applies ambition and drive, and actually gets there. And, you know, what you've described today is these things are never trouble-free, they're never challenge-free. You probably wouldn't want them to be, because you learn from those challenges and those problems. But I think you sound to me that you couldn't be better placed to reach Christmas and the end of the year feeling pretty good about yourself and pretty good about your business.
Hopefully get to take some time off as well, and some holidays, I think, for Christmas, because it has been a long year, but it's been a good year. So, you know, next year should be even better in my mind.
And it's just to finish, it's been a funny old year, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, where the world was when we went to the new year, I think that January to March period in the UK was about as kind of sobering as it's ever been.
Miserable.
It was, wasn't it?
I was 40 in January, and it was just, I think I went for a walk around the park and then went home and watched the TV. You know, it was full on lockdown, miserable birthday.
Really. You've done 40 laps.
I think I did, but I did one and sat in the car for a bit and contemplated driving into the lake, I think, at one point.
I'm glad you didn't do that.
Oh, you're so dramatic. Try having a birthday on the 8th of January, it's our last.
Yeah, but at least, well, it was the 8th, we were still locked down on the 8th, weren't we? I think this year.
Well, we were still locked down till end of March, weren't we?
I think we were, yeah. But it was a bit grim.
It was, but we're through it.
We're through it, hopefully. Hopefully the booster jabs all stack up as well and we don't get back in it for Christmas.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you were a betting man or woman, you'd probably say we're over the worst of it and we can move forward, and it's great to hear that Zeus is moving forward, and so are you. So good having a beer with you, my friend.
Yeah. Simon,
thanks for coming on. We'd love to have you back. Best of luck with Zeus Tech Solutions, and best of luck with you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Simon.
Take care, mate.
Thank you.